Welcome to my channel, or back to my channel. If you're new here, great, so am I. I have recently migrated over here from TikTok. I have a book talk over there where I blab all day about books, but I've decided to migrate over here so that I can become even more nerdy. I started on TikTok to sort of nerdify the place rather than just listing books and saying I like this or don't like. I tried to go a little bit more in depth over there, and people seem to like that. I've had a lot of people asking me to start a booktube channel, so here I am. The problem is I don't spend a lot of time over on YouTube, so I don't really know what I'm doing. But my channel is called Tim Blackett Reads, so I've decided to straight up nerdify this channel. I am literally gonna read to you. I love short fiction. I always have. It's my one true love. I believe it's the purest form of art. So I am going to read short stories, no more than 7 pages, and then go into a little bit of depth about why I think it is a worthwhile story. I am no expert, but I do have a few short stories published. I've got 3 published in different magazines, and I read a lot of short fiction, and I even read short fiction theory for fun. And my first book is a series of connected short stories that will be coming out in November. It's called Grandview Drive. But more than that, I just love short fiction, and I think there is nothing better to teach young writers how to write than to read and think deeply about short stories. I've decided to start this series with a story called A Bullet in the Brain by Tobias Wolff. I have it collected in this anthology called Children Playing Before a Statue of Hercules, which is edited by David Sedaris, but it's also in Tobias Wolff's collection called The Night in Question. I'm starting with this because it's one of my favorite stories ever written, or that I've read, and because I think it says a lot about what short fiction can do. It can teach you as a writer how to write short fiction, or it can just be a great short story for readers who want to get into the genre. So without further ado, here is A Bullet in the Brain by Tobias Wolff. Anders couldn't get to the bank until just before it closed, so of course the line was endless, and he got stuck behind 2 women whose loud, stupid conversation put him in a murderous temper. He was never in the best of tempers anyway, Anders, a book critic known for the weary, elegant savagery with which he dispatched almost everything he reviewed. With the line still doubled around the rope, one of the tellers stuck a position close sign in her window and walked to the back of the bank, where she leaned against the desk and began to pass the time with a man shuffling papers. The women in front of Anders broke off their conversation and watched the teller with hatred. "Oh, that's nice," one of them said. She turned to Anders and added, confident of his accord, "One of those little human touches that keep us coming back for more." Anders had conceived his own towering hatred of the teller, but he immediately turned it on the presumptuous crybaby in front of him. "Damned unfair," he said. "Tragic, really. If they're not chopping off the wrong leg or bombing your ancestral village, they're closing their positions." She stood her ground. "I didn't say it was tragic," she said. "I just think it's a pretty lousy way to treat your customers." "Unforgivable," Anders said. "Heaven will take note." She sucked in her cheeks but stared past him and said nothing. Anders saw that the other woman, her friend, was looking in the same direction, and the tellers stopped what they were doing, and the customers slowly turned and silence came over the bank. 2 men were wearing black ski masks and blue business suits were standing to the side of the door. One of them had a pistol pressed to the guard's neck. The guard's eyes were closed and his lips were moving. The other man had a sawed-off shotgun. "Keep your big mouth shut," the man with the pistol said, though no one had spoken a word. "One of you tellers hits the alarm, you're all dead meat. Got it?" The tellers nodded. "Oh, bravo," Anders said. "Dead meat." He turned to the woman in front of him. "Great script, eh? The stern, brass-knuckled poetry of the dangerous classes." She looked at him with drowning eyes. The man with the shotgun pushed the guard to his knees. He handed the shotgun to his partner and yanked the guard's wrist up behind his back and locked them together with a pair of handcuffs. He toppled him onto the floor with a kick between the shoulder blades. Then he took his shotgun back and went over to the security gate at the end of the counter. He was short and heavy and moved with peculiar slowness, even torpor. "Buzz him in," his partner said. The man with the shotgun opened the gate and sauntered along the line of tellers, handing them each a hefty bag. When he came to the empty position, he looked over at the man with the pistol, who said, "Whose slot is that?" Anders watched the teller. She put her hand to her throat and turned to the man she'd been talking to. He nodded. "Mine," she said. "Then get your ugly ass in gear and fill that bag." "There you go," Anders said to the woman in front of him. "Justice is done." "Hey, bright boy, did I tell you to talk?" "No," Anders said. "Then shut your trap." "Did you hear that?" Anders said. "Bright boy, right out of The Killers." "Please be quiet," the woman said. "Hey, you deaf or what?" The man with the pistol walked over to Anders. He poked the weapon into Anders' gut. "You think I'm playing games?" "No," Anders said, but the barrel tickled like a stiff finger, and he had to fight back the titters. He did this by making himself stare into the man's eyes, which were clearly visible behind the holes in the mask, pale blue and rawly red-rimmed. The man's left eyelid kept twitching. He breathed out a piercing ammoniac smell that shocked Anders more than anything that had happened, and he was beginning to develop a sense of unease when the man prodded him again with the pistol. "You like me, bright boy?" he said. "You want to suck my dick?" "No," Anders said. "Then stop looking at me." Anders fixed his gaze at the man's shiny wing-tipped shoes. "Not down there, up there." He stuck the pistol under Anders' chin and pushed it upward until Anders was looking at the ceiling. Anders had never paid much attention to that part of the bank, a pompous old building with marble floors and counters and pillars and gilt scrollwork over the tellers' cages. The domed ceiling had been decorated with mythological figures whose fleshy, toga-draped ugliness Anders had taken in at a glance many years earlier and afterward declined to notice. Now he had no choice but to scrutinize the painter's work. It was even worse than he remembered, and all of it executed with the utmost gravity. The artist had a few tricks up his sleeve and used them again and again, a certain rosy blush of the underside of the clouds, a coy backward glance on the faces of the cupids and fawns. The ceiling was crowded with various dramas, but the one that caught Anders' eye was Zeus and Europa, portrayed in this rendition as a bull ogling a cow from behind a haystack. To make the cow sexy, the painter had canted her hips suggestively and given her long, droopy eyelashes through which she gazed back at the bull with sultry welcome. The bull wore a smirk, and his eyebrows were arched. If there'd been a bubble coming up out of his mouth, it would have said hubba hubba. "What's so funny, bright boy?" "Nothing." "You think I'm comical? You think I'm some kind of clown?" "No." "You think you can fuck with me?" "No." "Fuck with me again, your history, capiche?" Anders burst out laughing. He covered his mouth with both hands and said, I'm sorry, then snorted helplessly through his fingers and said, "Capiche? Oh, God, capiche?" And at that, the man with the pistol raised the pistol and shot Anders right in the head. The bullet smashed Anders' skull and plowed through his brain and exited behind his right ear, scattering shards of bone into the cerebral cortex, the corpus callosum, back toward the basal ganglia, and down into the thalamus. But before all this occurred, the first appearance of the bullet in the cerebrum set off a crackling chain of ion transports and neurotransmissions. Because of their peculiar origin, these traced a peculiar pattern, flukishly calling to life a summer afternoon some 40 years past, a long since lost to memory. After striking the cranium, the bullet was moving at 900 feet per second, a pathetically sluggish glacial pace compared to the synaptic lightning that flashed around it. Once in the brain, that is, the bullet came under the mediation of brain time, which gave Anders plenty of leisure to contemplate the scene that, in a phrase he would have abhorred, passed before his eyes. It is worth noting what Anders did not remember, given what he did remember. He did not remember his first lover, Sherry, or what he had most madly loved about her before it came to irritate him, her unembarrassed carnality, and especially the cordial way she had with his unit, which she called Mr. Mole, as in, "Uh-oh, looks like Mr. Mole wants to play, and let's hide Mr. Mole." Anders did not remember his wife, whom he had also loved before she exhausted him with her predictability, or his daughter, now a sullen professor of economics at Dartmouth. He did not remember standing just outside his daughter's door as she lectured her bear about his naughtiness and described the truly appalling punishments Paws would receive unless he changed his ways. He did not remember a single line of the hundreds of poems he had committed to memory in his youth so that he could give himself the shivers at will, not silent upon a peak in Darien, or my God, I heard this day, or all my pretty ones? Did you say all? Oh, hellkite, all? None of these did he remember, not one. Anders did not remember his dying mother saying of his father, I should have stabbed him in his sleep. He did not remember Professor Joseph's telling his class how Athenian prisoners in Sicily had been released if they could recite Aeschylus, and then reciting Aeschylus himself, right there in the Greek. Anders did not remember how his eyes had burned at those sounds. He did not remember the surprise of seeing a college classmate's name on the jacket of a novel not so long after they graduated, or the respect he had felt after reading the book. He did not remember the pleasure of giving respect, nor did Anders remember seeing a woman leap to her death from the building opposite his own just days after his daughter was born. He did not remember shouting, Lord, have mercy! He did not remember deliberately crashing his father's car into a tree, or having his ribs kicked in by 3 policemen at an anti-war rally, or waking himself up with laughter. He did not remember when he began to regard the heap of books on his desk with boredom or dread, or when he grew angry at writers for writing them. He did not remember when everything began to remind him of something else. This is what he did remember. Heat, a baseball field. Yellow grass, the whir of insects, himself leaning against the tree as the boys of the neighborhood gathered for a pickup game. He looks on as the others argue the relative genius of Mantle and Mays. They have been worrying this subject all summer, and it has become tedious to Anders, an oppression like the heat. Then the last 2 boys arrive, Coyle and a cousin of his from Mississippi. Anders has never met Coyle's cousin before and will never see him again. He says hi with the rest, but takes no further notice of him until they've chosen sides, and someone asks the cousin what position he wants to play. Shortstop, the boy says. Short's the best position they is. Anders turns and looks at him. He wants to hear Coyle's cousin repeat what he had just said, but he knows better than to ask. The others will think he's being a jerk, ragging the kid for his grammar, but that isn't it, not at all. It's that Anders is strangely roused, elated by those final 2 words, their pure unexpectedness and their music. He takes the field in a trance, repeating them to himself. The bullet is already in the brain. It won't be outrun forever or charmed to a halt. In the end, it will do its work and leave the troubled skull behind, dragging its comet's tail of memory and hope and talent and love into the marble hall of commerce. They can't be helped. But for now, Anders can still make time. Time for the shadows to lengthen on the grass. Time for the tethered dog to bark at the flying ball. Time for the boy in right field to smack his sweat-blackened mitt and softly chants, They is, they is, they is. Man, I just love this story. Every time I read it, I love it even more, and I have read it easily 20 times. I can't even tell you how many times I've read it. I just love how you can feel Tobias Wolff just playing and having fun in the story. He's playing within the text, flipping things on its head, but he's also playing with the reader and doing things that make you think the story is going one way and then it just goes in a completely different direction. He starts by painting Anders as kind of a cartoon character that nobody in their right mind would like or identify with, and short story writers have been doing this forever, from Gogol to Edgar Allan Poe to Chekhov to Flannery O'Connor and Raymond Carver and George Saunders even. Just anyone who is good at short fiction is able to create these characters where if they were the main character of a novel, there would be people all over the place. I could not read this novel. I could not identify with the main character. They were so unlikable. I couldn't make it through, blah, blah, blah. And that is the beauty of short fiction, is that you are allowed to have despicable, unlikable characters in a short story. And Anders is just that, especially at the beginning. There's no way we actually like this guy. He is never in the best of tempers, and he is known for the weary, elegant savagery with which he dispatched almost everything he reviewed. And then we follow him in this little bit in the bank where he, in the same way he's savage with everything he reads and reviews, he seems to be savage with everything he sees in life. He, even though he agrees with the old ladies, he acts as if they are saying something totally stupid when they say what he was thinking. Oh, that's nice, the woman says. One of those little human touches that keep us coming back for more. And he just thinks, give me a break. You're so cliche. You're so stupid to have said the thing I'm thinking. And that is another beautiful thing about this story, is how packed full with cliche it is. I imagine if Tobias Wolff brought this to a workshop in university, or someone not named Tobias Wolff, who wasn't one of the greatest short fiction writers writing today, brought this to a workshop, everyone there, the main critique would be like, this is so cliche. Did you see how they say capiche? Did you see how they say you're dead meat? Did you see how even the complaining Karens are cliche? Did you see how a grumpy art critic is cliche? Did you see how flashing one's life flashing before your eyes is cliche? It's just all these different cliches, but Tobias Wolff gets around it because he's playing with it and he's twisting it, and even within the text he's saying these things are cliche, and he uses this man who is set up as a cliche, Anders, to critique the cliches within the text, and it makes it just so that it's weirdly meta and weirdly like we forgive the cliches so readily. It took me many times reading through this before I really understood how cliche the story is. Oh, there's mean bank robbers, and there's impatient old ladies, and there's grumpy, pretentious book critics. It's just, there's nothing in this story except for cliche, but still, Wolff is able to write an effective story because of the ways he turns it on its head. From the beginning, he sets it up as this satirical little story that we believe is going to be funny. We believe, as the reader, our job is to gather together and laugh at the grumpy critic. But then he suddenly, all of a sudden, he turns it so that it's not funny anymore. That this is a pretty serious story. The bank robbers are not just farcical clowns, but they're actually being violent and shoving guns into people's chests and kicking people over with their hands handcuffed behind their back. Presumably, they're getting hurt. And but it's funny because Anders can't see that's what's happening. And so we're laughing at Anders, and it feels funny, even though all of a sudden he gets shot in the brain. And even Wolff's description of that is just sudden and in a blink of an eye. The man with the pistol raised the pistol and shot Anders right in the head. There's no pomp and circumstance. There's no purple writing. It's just like, oh, this man is shooting another man, and that man is now shot. So in the space of one short sentence, it goes from this farcical sort of satirical story to a serious, endearing story. There's a break, and then we see Anders' life flash before his eyes. But even that terribly overdone cliche of one's life flashing before your eyes is sort of flipped on end here, with Wolff just describing in weird, complete detail how the bullet is flying through the man's brain and how it's triggering all these synapses within the brain. And then it is worth noting what Anders did not remember, given what he did remember. And then in the space of not even 2 pages, a page and a half, we get basically Anders' entire life story in a way that Anders is not remembering this stuff, but the narrator somehow remembers it, and we get to see Anders becoming who he is. Anders used to be at least somewhat engaged with the world, going to anti-war protests, visiting with his mom on her deathbed. We get to see a weird little entry into that relationship. I should have stabbed him in his sleep, so we know that Anders' childhood was probably not the coolest. And we get to see 2 love interests, both of which he got bored with or just those relationships fell apart. We get to see a brief glimpse into what his daughter is like, a doctor at Dartmouth, but he doesn't seem to be proud of that or excited about that. It seems boring to him. All of these things seem boring to him. And then we get his bit about the art. He doesn't remember when he started to get bored with art and with cliche. We don't remember when he started to despise and resent people for writing books. We don't remember when something started reminding him of everything else. Everything started reminding him of something else. And this is the point of the story. What he does remember is a little boy from Mississippi saying, I want to play shortstop. Shortstop is the best position they is. And this little turn of phrase, they is, catches Anders, and he's surprised by it. And it's the running this over in his head, they is. This is, according to the life flashing before his eyes, is the most important memory that his brain could put forth in the moment of his death. And to me, that says this is the moment where he was surprised by language in a way that showed him that, yes, there's something different than all of the cliche, than all of the normal things that we see every day, that when you're walking through the world, there are things that can surprise you. And having that first surprise, shortstop is the best position they is, clicked something in Anders' brain that made him be like, yeah, I like that. I want to be surprised. So when he's looking at art, when he's looking at paintings on the wall and he just sees the same old paintings, even though if it's well done, he's thinking of all the different cliches. Even when he sees Zeus and Europa depicted as cows, which to me doesn't seem cliche, he finds it cliche, and he says if there was a thought bubble there, Zeus would be saying hubba hubba, which again is another cliche. And so we see that Anders has spent his life searching for this surprise in life and in art and in everywhere he's looking. This is what he wants to see. And when he doesn't find it, he's frustrated. Even when the bank robbers are there and everything's going on and nothing surprises him, he still acts as if it's a joke. The one thing that does surprise him is the bank robber's breath. And as soon as he smells the breath, that's what surprises him. And that's what causes him to think maybe this is a serious thing that's happened, but he still can't get into okay, I'm gonna shut up now. He still messes around and gets shot in the brain because he's so used to thinking of life and art and everything as all mixed up into the same mumbo jumbo. One thing reminds him of the other, so that there's nothing new, nothing exciting. Life is boring except for this one memory he has in which a kid says shortstop is the best position they is. So you can take what you want from that story. It could maybe just be a funny little story that Tobias Wolff wrote, but to me it speaks to the writing process and how we are so cautious around cliches and how it's the first thing novice writers say when they're critiquing someone else's work, that this is cliche, and the novice writer gets offended. This is not cliche. This is whatever. But Tobias is speaking to the importance of being surprised. As human beings, as we're walking through the world, we enjoy this surprise or this new thing that's different than something we've experienced before. And many of us search our whole lives for those little things, whether it's in literature or art or movies or any media we consume, or whether it's in relationships. The reason you're not like other people is a compliment in some ways, is because we like to be surprised. We like to have something new. And it's one of the reasons I keep coming back to this story, is because it is only 6 pages long, but even though I've read it 25 times, there's still something new every time I read it. I feel surprised and I feel energetic and excited and pumped up by this story every single time. It makes me want to go write a cool short story. Of course, I can't write like Tobias Wolff, but I can't tell you how many times I've tried to mimic this story in my own writing, and one of them's going to be published in my book, so there you have it, the first Tim Blackett reads, in which Tim Blackett actually reads. If you're still here, I thank you so much. Consider clicking subscribe, and maybe I'll do this again. all 14 of you can join me while I read some beloved short stories. I'll see you next time at Tim Blackett Reads.